Crystal Palace have wiped the floor with Man United. 4-0. What a victory. I had the prediction down as a 3-1 win. Really want to say 5-0, but I think it's going to be 3-1. I'm really glad to see the Eagles come out of this one with a clean sheet. And honestly, what a set of goals that were scored. It was a joy to watch. Proper Samba football at Selhurst Park. The atmosphere from the crowd, I could hear it through the TV. It was 12 out of 10. And this was a fantastic Premier League game. Now, some people are going to be billing this as Man United were missing players. It's a shock result and all the rest of it. You guys that are on the channel, you know I've been saying Palace are the wildcard team for the remainder of the season. And Palace fans have seen it right before their eyes over the last couple of weeks. They're not surprised at all. In the video today, we'll be breaking down exactly how Crystal Palace managed to rip Man United apart. And, you know, now that the game's all said and done and we can add in the manager's comments into it, then there is great reason to be excited. Not just about the remainder of this season, but the potential business in the summer and what it could look like for Crystal Palace, who are finishing off the season in style kind of similar to, you know, the way Aston Villa might have done this last season. At any point in the video, if you laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the season, and we cannot do that without your support. So if you do enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoy the video, of course, and get into the comment section on this one and let me know who your man of the match was or your big takeaway from the game. Michael Olise, the deserved man of the match on the night, don't get me wrong, but there was a few other standout performers which we'll talk about in the video today. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, the Man United starting 11 is where the headlines begin, and I really don't want to talk about Man United in this video too much, so I thought right at the tip-off, we'll just talk about the 2 or 3 things about Man United that we need to, so we can put them to one side, and then we can enjoy the footballing feast that Ole Glasner's Crystal Palace served us up. Okay, now, number 1. Ten Hag decided he was going to lose this game before he turned up, and it's not because of Casemiro and Evans, but it's by putting Aaron Wan-Bissaka in at left back. Now, Wan-Bissaka, as Crystal Palace fans especially will know, is not renowned for his attacking output, so there's no other option for fullback, and the man decided, I want Diego Dalot's right foot. That's what I want. I want his right foot on this side of the pitch here, and we'll just get this guy to tuck in and defend a little bit more. And if he does find himself a bit higher, we'll make sure he just passes it kind of in and back and kind of safe or whatever. And effectively turning him in, like, he had a horrible night. He was terrible. He really was a fish out of water, a real 3 out of 10. And Dalot, I don't think, made up for it as a result. Christian Eriksen and Garnacho were the only players in this game that actually showed, for me, any sort of real character or anything like that. Mainu kind of showed maybe his lack of experience or whatever. Evans probably showed his age. And Casemiro, again, it's just fish out of water for me. The guy, if you were to probably put him in many other kind of functional teams in his natural habitat, you'd probably see something not too far detached from what you remember him being. But this defence is just split open all over the place, and it's just not his job or his position to be pulling it together and organising it. Anthony was an absolute empty jersey. He got the first shot on target for Man United tonight, and until that point, honestly, you wouldn't even know he was playing. And Højlund, I don't think, could get anything over Anderson. I think Joki Anderson had him firmly pocketed throughout the game. And yeah, it was like whenever the camera went to Ten Hag, it was like he was confused. Like, people are playing football and they're running about and want to score goals. This is crazy. And he just couldn't handle it because Crystal Palace and Ole Glasner set up this game as Glasner normally does. But honestly, the confidence, it came from the stands. There was so much electricity in the air. I could hear it through the television. But you're really seeing the guys get an extra foot taller. And it really just, honestly, Crystal Palace just looked like a top-end team, elite European outfit from start to finish in this match. Defensively, the setup was lovely with Klein and Munoz here, because Munoz is very firmly like in the Jeremy Frimpong role, to kind of keep it simple, where he's like very high up, almost an attacking right mid. In the Frankfurt days, this would have been like Asnar Canal for something like that. But he's essentially another attacker, and he's going to stop this fullback from doing anything anyway. So Wan-Bissaka in theory, you know, like you can see maybe where the numbers come into this when you're Ten Hag and you're doing it all on the whiteboard. That, yeah, maybe that works out a little bit. But having Klein in here as a secondary right back then gives Garnacho a bit more of an issue, because his pace can keep up with Garnacho over both sides of the play. And then with Mitchell, Eze on this side here kind of occupying Dalot, and Anthony, as I say, was an empty jersey anyway. There was just this this kind of web constructed from the back line here of the players we've just discussed, from Munoz all the way around to Mitchell. But then Wharton and Hughes being the absolute pivot. Now, the first half an hour of this game, Will Hughes played the best game I've ever seen him play. I've seen him play a fair few times, but not that much. Crystal Palace fans will know him way more than me. He was tackling, he was playing sublime balls across the midfield, and he was going everywhere. Now, I was keeping a keen eye on this guy, Wharton, because I've seen him once or twice, but I've heard many, many great things. I'm yet to see, like, I've seen him play good and stuff, don't get me wrong, but I was wanting to see, does he really do something? But for the first 30 minutes, it was all Will Hughes. He was going everywhere. And Wharton was a little bit more of the anchor, you know. Crystal Palace definitely play with this mentality of, you know, from the starting whistle, we're at 100%, let's play at 100%. And I think you really got that from the first 30 minutes from Will Hughes, certainly. Just getting into these extra spaces, pressing. And Mateta, I was a big Mateta, like, non-fan, detractor, whatever. And Glasner has really turned him into something I never thought he was capable of. He was proper alpha energy in the front line, and I think that just fed Olise and Eze even more. And when they were picking up the ball in pockets, they didn't always have that much space. There was always kind of people in and around them, but the give and go movements, the ability to dribble in between these guys, and, you know, the power of Eze, the skill of Olise, the power and skill of Mateta, like, Man United just couldn't cope. Man United were sitting ducks for this sort of attack. And Wharton and Hughes, if the ball was on this side of the pitch, Wharton would anchor in and Hughes wouldn't be too far away, and vice versa. If it was on this side of the pitch, it would be something similar yet again. For the first 30 minutes, I say Man United just felt like two men down. You take Anthony out of the picture, and then basically, like, in terms of where the ball is, there was just always like an extra, you know, Crystal Palace player, and it just felt like Man United had no one anywhere near it. Now, what's really interesting about this and what's really intentional, it's part of the reason we can delete Anthony off screen here, because he did nothing and he is absolutely pointless to the whole picture anyway. But because of Klein being this kind of right-sided, centre-back, if the ball is on this side of the pitch here, especially for the first half, he never really, abandoned ship, as it were. He stuck with Garnacho the whole way, and Anderson was so tight to Højlund that sometimes there just needed to be that extra body stepping up, and Chris Richards is going to go down in this match as the unsung hero. He did so much on and off the ball to kill space and, win his duels, play the ball, do all the stuff that in this system you need to be super effective at. And as the game goes, we'll talk about how they really need to think on their feet and adapt quickly as well to maintain, the perfect performance that really the defence especially did put in. But then it puts everything down on the right-hand side, and it just really then forces Man United into this really awkward situation here. And then that's when you start to see the best out of this Tyrick Mitchell, because when Glasner came in, I said somebody's going to, Munoz had just came in the door as well. Someone was going to become this artillery, because when we've got this back three from Glasner and the midfield two, they give you this kind of platform. And then alongside the wide players, what they're all trying to do effectively when the ball is in the Man United half, because it's like a team of two halves. When the ball's in the Man United half, which for the first half it very much was, they're all creating this kind of little framework here. So maybe Richards can be a bit wild and maybe just pop into space along with Will Hughes. But they create this framework here, and it's all about create this kind of box of safety. If the ball turns over, we should be able to kill the space and keep the ball kind of active and bouncing. But create this space so that Olise can play with, whoever the players are on this side of the pitch here. And then it gives the freedom for a Mitchell to come in as an overload. It gives the freedom for Eze to maybe come in like into this kind of space here and maybe play 1-2s or something. Or be that second striker if Mateta was to come all the way over. And because they want to play in two halves in two kind of separate ways like this, it takes, and this is a kind of understated part of all this, it takes a lot of pressure off the goalkeeper, because so many times in this game, Crystal Palace do and will just hit the ball long, and they're not aiming for a person, but they're definitely aiming for an area. In this case, it was it kind of looked like Wan-Bissaka's head, but it is just into that wide right zone. Just get it into that area, and we don't mind if Man United win it, because we are going to have Olise and Mateta with Munoz not too far behind, and they're going to get into a 3 versus 3 and try and turn the ball over. And if the football is getting played while we're at 100%, 95%, as they're expending their energy through the first half, as long as they can expend as much of their first half energy in the Man United half, then they should get goal scoring opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And really, that is just how the first half went. Crystal Palace completely dominated it. And, whenever Man United did turn the ball over, it was Garnacho versus Klein. And sometimes Højlund could come into the mix to try and, have a bit of a 50-50 with Højlund. But Mount was just as absent as Anthony, to be honest with you. I almost forgot he was playing at times. Eriksen was okay, but didn't really have anything to do. But because Mitchell on the left-hand side and Munoz on the right-hand side, the centre ground of Man United just never got an opportunity to get together and try and play. They were just really pulled apart. So even when you see that it's just Hughes and Wharton, they were never overloaded in midfield, in that midfield too. even though the likes of Olise, Eze, Mateta were quite high in pressing. Sometimes Hughes wasn't too far away, like I mentioned already, in the press. And that kind of takes me into, the second half, how that developed. And the manager's comments that we had after the game was that he was actually rather displeased with the first half performance. And in the second half, we actually seen it without the ball, the second half of that strategy playing in two halves. It when Crystal Palace are in their own half, he was very unhappy, in his own words, with the pockets that Man United were getting into with Garnacho, because between the space between Munoz and Klein, sometimes Garnacho, he'd be on the front foot and be running. There was some pockets in there. He didn't like that. Second half, when Palace didn't have the ball, you really did notice it was much more of a bank in and ready to press and kind of counter-attack. And that front three of Mateta, Eze and Olise would come into their own half and create that kind of front barrier to then set up the back four, depending on what side of the pitch the ball was on, where Munoz and Klein and these other guys would kind of sit and go. And then from there is where we start to see kind of a flavour of what happens for Mateta's goal in the first half. But Glasner Ball wants to defend well, not give the opposition any opportunities to, actually create goal scoring chances, get shots on target, that kind of thing. They want to kill the spaces, be nice and compact and make the team work for each other. But when they get the ball, one or two passes, and then can they play into space, into a strong, technically gifted runner and counter-attack? And that's what Mateta, Eze and Olise are always prone to doing. We get that fantastically well from Mateta's goal, where he turns into Pro Evo Adriano in the first half. But in the second half, they're given more space to do that because they were so much higher in pressing. Man United were deeper, but Glasner wants Man United higher, even if they are, especially because they're worse defensively, because then you've got space to run into. You're able to then have them turning and running at their own goal. And the spaces that were caused between Casemiro and Evans, like it was a gaping hole at times for Olise and Eze to come into. In the second half, I thought it was a bit of legs or whatever, but hearing the manager at full time saying that it was instructions, it was strategy, then that alone for me is like, wow. That first half he was not happy with, and in the second half he makes a defensive-based change, and we've all seen it happen before, where that just lets the team in the back door. But not only do they not let the team in the back door, they retain the clean sheet and then match the first half's goal scoring output, 2-0, 2-0 in both halves to win the game 4-0. And, honestly, the game, like the defence, this is the other thing I wanted to mention, okay, but we see the return of Mark Guy, which was fantastic to see. Now, Klein put in a great shift. In the second half, we did get an opportunity where Munoz, I think this was round about when it was going 3-0. And for me, this is really where Man United just got in the deep end and drowned, because Munoz was up here at right back, and Klein once or twice around the 40th to 50th minute or something like that overlapped. And at that point, Man United, you could just tell they felt like throwing the towel in, just like, Jesus Christ, the fullback, the centre-back is now overlapping, and, what are we doing here? So, big props to Klein. I thought he did great. But when he came off for Guy, I think this is what most people that would observe Palace fans or whatever, would consider to be the closest thing to the strongest back three that they've probably got. Chris Richards was fantastic in this game, so was Anderson, and Guy is fantastic and has been injured. And the left-footed centre-back, at first it was really interesting when he first came on, because he was actually in the middle of the three of them, and eventually it worked around to being Anderson in the middle with Richards on the right and Guy on the left. So there was a few moments in the match around the substitutions for Man United and for them. Back three rejigged quite a few different times in terms of who was in what position. And again, these things can lead to calamity in the match. And they were really cool, calm and collected with it. Again, a lot of intelligent players. Richards and Anderson have got credible European experience on the continent. And Guy is obviously a fantastic youth international. So there's so much promise all the way through this team. Hughes is obviously a veteran, Wharton, the talent. We know about the front three already. And Munoz already came at the Prem, him and Mitchell on this wide side here. They just keep Man United wide. They stop the game from getting compact. So the likes of Mount, Mainu, Eriksson, these guys all get detached from each other and they get ripped apart. So it was, an absolute masterclass. But when you bring Guy into this team and you put that as the back three, now, not that you would, like I said, it was a clean sheet, it was an absolutely fantastic game. And then you look at the quality of, Riedewald, I thought looked pretty tidy, by the way. He looked pretty solid. But we know Ayew is a very capable contributor from the bench, especially in this kind of game, in this kind of shape. He's got high energy, and if you can get a really good Ayew for half an hour, fantastic. And even if maybe somebody's needing a rest, maybe come off at halftime or something in the future, you never know. But Mateta was fantastic, and I thought Edouard looked fantastic hitting the post when he came off the bench as well. And it's that competition for places that's probably the next thing that's missing, because, when you add in Schlupp and Joel Ward Saki, who's coming through, he's maybe in Franca, they're maybe the two exceptions, but that's kind of the extent of the squad. It is rather shallow. The Man United squad is very, very shallow, and if you look at their bench, they really had no other options in this game, and they were kind of sitting ducks for a super well organised, well drilled, and attack minded team. And Crystal Palace came out and delivered. I did say when Glasner was appointed that there were going to be wild cards for the remainder of the season, and I'm so glad that they're delivering, and they're an absolute joy to watch. 4-0. Going on 6 or 7. Absolutely fantastic, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is kind of my big takeaways from it. Is Crystal Palace, this is not a surprise. This is not a flash in the pan. Glasner Ball is delivering and is hitting the Premier League levels. And I don't know if I'd say it's evolving, because it is quite similar to what we've seen in Germany. But I do think the players in particular could go to greater heights, of course, than what they did at Frankfurt. So a great evolution in that regard. On screen there now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Please do hit the subscribe button for more content like this, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.